What if everything you've been told about retirement is completely wrong? Imagine just walking away from your job in your 50s, getting out of the grind and living your best life. Just because people told you have to retire at 65 doesn't mean that's the way that it has to be. Retirement is a concept that's only about 100 years old. And imagine what work looked like 100 years ago, working in factories and things. And think about what work looks like today. Well, retirement also looks different. So let me tell you how it's changed and why retiring in your 50s is probably the best idea. Just in case you're new here, I'm Jeff. This is the Retirement Mentality Channel. It's a place where I want to change your mentality about retirement. And today I want to do that by telling you that retiring in your 50s might be the most strategic, best plan of attack for your retirement plan. And we're going to talk about, first let's talk about breaking some of the myths that you probably believe, that most people believe at least, that you have to work until you're 65. And, back in the day when people worked until 65, a lot of people only worked one job. They worked for the same company for 40 years and they got the gold watch and they got the pension and they retired at 65. But that's not the way work works anymore. And it's also not the way retirement works anymore. We don't have pensions anymore. We have some Social Security, but there's some debate. Obviously, they've been debating whether Social Security is going to last for a long time. But people are living longer. And, in the 30s, they started pension programs at big like railroads and factories and things. They started doing pensions. And by the 1970s, they started shifting away from company pensions. They started shifting towards 401ks. It's kind of when the 401k was invented. And by the 1990s, you pretty much need to be self-reliant on yourself for your own retirement plan. And, most people don't work for the same company for 40 years. So like the company loyalty doesn't exist anymore. The company pensions don't exist anymore. And we just retire in a different way than we used to. We have to be more self-reliant, and waiting until you're 65, it's not a thing anymore. So let's talk about the financial side of things. A lot of people say you need millions and millions of dollars. And I believe that prevents a lot of people to even start investing. But the truth is, the power of compound interest is an amazing and wonderful thing that makes it possible for many people to retire earlier than 65. I was going to say those of us, but I'm not really one of them. The people who started investing early in their 20s and their 30s, after 30 years of investing, they're going to have $1 million or $2 or $3 or $4 million by the time they retire if they wait till 60 or 65. And the sooner you start putting that money in, obviously the faster it grows over time, the more it grows over time. But for those of us that didn't do that, most of my audience is already in their 40s and 50s. So you can't go back to your 20s and 30s and start investing. So if you want to retire early and you didn't start investing in your 20s and 30s, you can still create forms of passive income. I did it through investing in real estate. I have 5 rental properties that basically fund my lifestyle. I've also sold my big dream house in America and bought a small little farm here in Spain, which cost half of what I sold my other property for. And I have a bunch of land here. I still haven't given you guys a tour, but it's going to be coming here very soon. And retiring doesn't mean you just quit working forever. You can still have ways you bring in money. I call it recreational employment. I call the FIRE movement financial independence recreational employment. I didn't wear my shirt today, but I literally have a shirt that says that on it. And the key to retiring early is not to just keep building this enormous amass of wealth and just having all this money in the bank and then having the status of this money. I think is the problem that a lot of people want to accomplish. The key to retiring early is to figure out how much money you actually need to live out your days, and or how much income you need. Like that's what I've done. I've created income that funds my lifestyle instead of saving up a big pot of money. Everybody comes up with their FIRE number, which is some random number, 5 million, 10 million, 1 million. And then they work to that. But I don't think they figure out, how much their life is actually going to cost. My life here in Spain costs way less than my life was in Florida. Right now we're splitting our time between Spain and Florida. So my life is not any cheaper. It's probably more expensive. But eventually when we transition here full time, it will be a lot cheaper. So figuring out what your life is going to cost is really the key, instead of picking some arbitrary number and saving to that point. The third topic I want to talk about is your health and well-being. I think we all know that one of the biggest stresses in life comes from our wives. Just kidding. It comes from work, probably, for most of us. And the later you work and the stress is just bogging you down and causing, I mean, stress causes physical problems in your body as well, ulcers and heart problems and all kinds of things. So the sooner you can get out of that stressful environment, the better, obviously, it's going to be for your mental well-being as well as your physical well-being. But also, like here at my little finca that I have here in Spain, I have a trail camera. I move all over the property. I've got it pretty far up the mountain. I'm going to go check it again today. If you watched my last video, I walked up the mountain to go check my trail camera, but I'm going to do that as soon as this video's over. I didn't want to get too sweaty because it's going to be like 95 degrees today here in the mountains. I digress. But mental, being more healthy, hiking up this mountain every day is more exercise than I got on any given day when I lived in Florida. And that's just what I do in the morning to go check my trail camera. There's also a river. I have to hike down the other half of the mountain and I can go sit in the river. There's a beautiful little swimming spot in the river right down below my house. So I walk down the river. I'd go for a swim several times a week. So, and we go to town and we walk around. Everybody walks everywhere in Europe. So let me tell you, I get a lot more exercise here than I did back in Florida. And I have more time for it, obviously. And if I lived in a city, I would probably be a member of a gym, or I would go play, I played pickleball. I'm going to try to there's some different sport here called paddle that's a lot like pickleball. I want to get into that. So there's a lot more opportunity to get exercise and just in a natural way without having to go to the gym. I have time for it now. People always say, I'll get so bored in retirement, but trust me, just my little trail camera, takes an hour a day for me to go walk up the mountain and get it, come down, check the footage. There's a lot of things you can do that are also healthy. We go for lots of hikes here in the mountains, and just the mental ability to not have to worry and stress about work and things just compounds the healthiness. Not to mention, we have time. We cook at home a lot. We have obviously lots of fresh ingredients here in Spain, and today is Tuesday, and as soon as I get done with this, my wife, well, actually, I probably won't go today. She's going to go into town and they have a little farmer's market every Tuesday, and she goes and buys the vegetables, and they're all fresh grown from the farmers. And we have a butcher here in town, and all the meat is 0 kilometer. It comes from right here where we live. So it's nice to have healthy food options, and we have more time to cook healthy. And that's another benefit to our health for being retired early, having that extra time. The fourth thing that's a benefit to retired in your 50s is you can still have purpose and passion. Retiring early doesn't mean you retired from life. You retired from a job that you worked that gave you more time to live the life you actually want. And like I talked about with my trail camera, that's one thing I do that I'm passionate about that brings me great joy. And going down, I go fly fishing in the river. I go swimming in the river. We go hiking in these mountains. I've got a ton of work. I don't know if you noticed in any of my previous videos, this was all a wild jungle, and now it is all tamed. I got a weed eater. I've weed eated all this, so it looks like I actually have a little bit of a yard. There's a rake sitting right there. I just noticed it from me working in the yard. I work in this yard a lot, and it actually brings me joy. I like working in the yard and taming this wild, huge piece of acreage I have here. So retiring early, my body and mind are still young enough that I can go wading in this river and go fly fishing and go hiking up this mountain. And my wife's sister was here last week, and we hiked all through the Pyrenees to super big peaks and things. And I still could hang with the younger girls and get out there and do some hiking. So these are things I couldn't do if I would have waited till 65 to retire, for sure. And the fifth thing I'll touch on about retiring in your 50s is that it's not all rainbows and unicorns. There are some pitfalls you have to watch out for. You have to figure out your healthcare situation. Here in Europe, healthcare is much less expensive. So that's one option. If you are worried about healthcare expenses, you can move out of America. Another thing is inflation and cost of living increases. If you try to retire too early and you can barely get by now, and things get more expensive and healthcare gets more expensive, you could get yourself into trouble. So you have to really plan and budget according to the early retirement. A lot of people talk about the 4% rule, and that was based on a 70-30 bond to stock split with a 30-year retirement based on this and that. A lot of people don't realize there's a lot of little asterisks involved with the 4% rule. So you got to make sure you got your numbers crunched right, and that you're not going to run out of money, and that you're going to have your health care figured out. And when you retire early, it's a little bit harder in the friend department, because not everybody retires early. If they did, it wouldn't be called early retirement. It would just be called retirement. So a lot of your friends are probably still going to be going to work. So you're going to be maybe feeling a little bit isolated after you leave work. You don't have all that work interaction, and then now all your friends are working and you don't have anybody to hang out with all day. So then you start a YouTube channel and you talk to the camera like it's your best friend. So you got to figure out friends and interaction, especially if one spouse retires and the other spouse doesn't, then you're really sitting at home alone, twiddling your thumbs, trying to figure out what to do. So you got to figure out that social connection part as well. What do you think? Are you interested in retiring early? Do you think in your 50s is a good time? Do you think, oh my God, I'm retired, that's not early, that's old. I'm going to retire in my 40s or my 30s. 50 sounds really old when you're in your 30s, let's be honest. And 50 sounded pretty old when I was in my 40s. And now that I'm 52, 50 still sounds pretty freaking old. So let me know down in the comments at what age you think you'd like to retire. What do you think the perfect retirement age is? And give me a thumbs up down there if you like this video. And if you like this video, go watch this video over here and I'll talk more about 5 things that are shocking about retiring early. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next video.